Jimbo, what is up, dude? Welcome to Metal Mixtape here on kskqdjramo. Yeah, we got Shane Michaels over here. We got Cat Manheim, my friend, myself. Dude, you ready to have a good time here, Mr. Jim Harris?
Ready to have a good time, brother. Can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear you perfectly. And just a reminder to all the listeners listening to the Metal Mixtape here on KSQ, we are talking to Jim Harris. Like I said, renowned musician here in the United States. This guy just crushes it. Musician, drummer. I mean, he's been all sorts of bands. Emissary, Sylent, Blood Me Warning, probably a lot of other projects I don't know. But we are just honored and humbled to have you on the show, man.
Thank you. And not just in America, we're doing pretty well overseas as well.
Oh yeah, I know in America too. Yeah. I wasn't meaning like. No, I would say you're bigger than David Hasselhoff. And where is he big? Russia? Germany? No, where's that country he's really famous in, Jim? You know.
He's really big in Germany. Yeah.
Yeah. He had that hula. Yeah, that song was sick, dude. Wait, you know what? No, you're right. You know how big Jim is? Jim gets his stuff pirated all the time. Like, he did this post yesterday, and I remember I commented, and he's like, dude, people are charging $140 for Silent Storm comforters.
It's true. Yeah, and you said, that's a pretty sweet comforter. I was like, who wants a Silent Storm comforter? I don't even want a Silent Storm comforter.
Hey, Jim, we're only going to spend like 5 minutes on this topic, but what's your reaction when you see like bootleg CDs, like people literally creating like these bios and stealing all your pictures and but he basically trying to market off your work do you see it as more of a compliment, or is that like something like you have to like report to like your record label and everything and be like, hey, there's a site here, like what goes through your head, especially with your music being under labels and under copyright and all that, like what do you do?
Well, we're fortunate enough. I've been fortunate enough the last couple of labels I've been on where the label doesn't own the material.
Okay.
Some labels, when you sign on, they own the material for like 5 years or whatever, and they get a cut of the digital and all of that. But with our record deal, with the Emissary record deal, and with my last record deal with Silent Storm, we obtain the rights to the material itself. They just get to print it and sell what they print. So as far as the copyrights go, it all comes back to me, or me and the band. It's weird. It's a very bizarre feeling to feel equally pissed off and flattered at the same time. Because there's a bootleg Emissary CD floating around South America where apparently I guess there weren't enough copies to go around, and somebody made their own version, took pictures off of my Facebook page and created a different insert of the cover, and it's a bootleg. You know, like when you see a bootleg Metallica live and whatever. It's a bootleg CD, and they posted it on Instagram and even tagged my band in it. And
what the heck?
It's like, yeah, and took all these professional pictures of it. They're like, hey, we have this available. And I messaged the label, and I messaged my publicist and said, what do we do about this? And he says, there's nothing you can do, man. It's just going to happen. You should feel flattered that anybody cares enough to make copies or whatever. It's really trippy to find out that there are countries overseas where I've never stepped foot in, where I'm a bigger rock star than I am in Medford, Oregon.
Have you considered moving? Come to Brazil.
No, I haven't considered moving. I'm not gonna move. I love the Road Valley.
Yeah, because I know. Oh my gosh, Marty Friedman. He's like amazingly popular in Japan, and in Japan, like he's a crazy rock star compared to like the United States. Like, no, people know who he is here because you know how Marty Friedman looks. He's like a real specific looking person. I mean, even his guitar playing is like amazingly weird. You know what I mean? It's almost like a Frank Zappa type of weird guitar playing. He just plays weird. He just plays different. You know what I mean? But in Japan, dude, this guy's freaking insanely famous. And a lot of the videos I watch from him are like he's doing all his guitar tutorials in Japanese, doing all these videos like in like over there he's royalty. Yeah.
Yeah, it's trippy, man. I mean, we won Album of the Year on some Colombian metal site that was along with some other acts. I think we categorized by power metal and symphonic. I don't know, how they did it, but there was several acts that they named as album of the year, and we got named as one of the albums of the year with The Wretched Masquerade, as you know. Emissary just released this last year.
Dude, you guys worked so hard last year with Emissary, dude, and I definitely want to get into that, and we're gonna talk to that about a little bit more about that at the tail end of our shows. I know we didn't do a whole lot, but dude, overall, with our return, I feel like 2022 is our first actual return to music. And we had a lot of surprises. I think 2022 was like the year of like the new festivals. Like I felt like all these new festivals started coming out. Like almost people like, and one thing I started noticing too that all these festivals started really bunching up artists. You know what I mean? Like there's like I noticed a lot of genre-specific festivals, new ones coming out, and all that. Did you notice like a massive influx in artists in music, Jimbo?
Yeah, of course. I knew that during the pandemic, when things really got nasty in 2020, I was already looking at, okay, as soon as this starts to calm down, people are going to be so hungry that they're going to go to anything possible. And I think that there's still some apprehension, because COVID's scary. I mean, I've personally had friends die of COVID. I mean, this isn't something that's some faraway thing that I've heard about. Like this is in my hood. I've had it 3 times, and it is a scary thing. I mean, and depending on what news you pay attention to, we won't get into that, but there's, even getting the shots for the COVID, that's scary. So there's just a lot of apprehension about getting into a large group of people with a bunch of strangers. So I understand that, and I think it's creeping along, and I'm really surprised to see photos from festivals. Like friends of ours, like Unleash the Archers or whoever, and they're on stage and they're doing that pose where they just played and they have the photographer stand up at the drum set and they turn around and pose and you get the crowd in the picture and there's just a sea of heads where it's like, wow, and no masks. So it's starting to look like, okay, things are starting to feel like they're going back to normal. I think that we're going to get more of that in 2023 for sure, because I am seeing a lot of festival posters for a lot of fests worldwide.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, and everybody was hungry. It was insane, and it's insane, dude. Like I'm even like just seeing like there's like even around our areas there's just not enough venues for like all these bands and all these genres, because I feel like a lot of times like in my head I remember I get stuck thinking that like all these venues and stuff, they don't just book metal, There's a bunch of folk musicians that got hungry, a bunch of punk musicians that got hungry, a bunch of rappers, a bunch of EDM artists that got hungry. And it's weird because I feel like sometimes we're going through like a rebirth of music because it's like, all right, through COVID, all these venues died, all these bands broke up, all these people reprioritized their life, And now there's just like this big wave of bands and just artists are just like, we want to play, So, dude, one of the comebacks we got before the new year started was, the Pantera tribute. Dude, what's your opinion been on that, Jim? I've been, having a lot of knowledge on a lot of music, dude. Like, what was your opinion before they started doing it, and then after?
Okay, so I've got quite a bit to say about this.
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Get yourself comfortable. Now,
I will interrupt you in 6 minutes, though. Just letting you know for the top of the hour, but go ahead.
All right. So I don't think it's any secret that anybody knows me. I'm not the hugest Pantera fan. I'm just, I can take it or leave it. It's just not exactly my thing.
Yeah.
Seen them live, met the guys, fine, whatever, and they were the biggest thing in the world for a while. So, Here's the way I'm going to look at it. People will say things like, "Oh, it's like Van Halen," because it was started by the drummer and guitarist. But here's the big difference: the band wasn't called Abbott, and those guys' last name isn't Pantera. So therefore, having the guys that are no longer with us out of the picture, it's not exactly the same as like say a Van Halen situation.
Yeah.
So this is how I want to look at it, and I have not had any I look at things from a business perspective, as well as I'm a fan of metal as well, so I look at things from a fan perspective. And I kind of fight myself on this. My heart, my emotions tell me they shouldn't call it Pantera. They should call it a celebration of Pantera. They should call it Pantera Resurrected. Something to that effect. Kind of like how they did with Dio Disciples, you know, when Dio passed away and like his band moved on without him with a different singer, and they called it the Dio Disciples. It basically celebrating the music of Dio, or, you know, that type of a situation. So that's what my heart says. But then my professional mind says, okay, how many bands can you name? And I can name a lot of bands that started out with 4 members, and 2 of the members left, died, whatever, got fired, and the band continued on with 2 of the other members, and they got a couple of new guys. All right, you can just name anybody.
Oh, I can think of like 10 bands off the top of my head right now. Yeah.
Right, so here's an interesting situation. I'm going to compare it to, this is going to go on for a minute, but you're familiar, I don't know how old you were when White Snake was big on MTV, like, I don't know, what year were you born?
89.
Okay, so 2 years before you were born, 87, I was 16 years old, and they were the biggest thing on MTV. When that video for Still of the Night came out, Still of the Night, you know what I'm talking about, like, he's got, you know, in the videos where these guys, the lady, like rolling all around his Jaguar and all that.
Oh, no, I remember that. Yeah.
Okay, that era. When you see the video, you're watching Rudy Sarzo licking his bass guitar, and the guitar players are Adrian Vandenberg and Vivian Campbell, and you got Tommy Aldridge on drums, and you're hearing, right? What you're hearing is not what you're seeing, because those guys did not play on the record. It was a completely different band. It was Coverdale, and then he had John Sykes on guitar, he had a different bassist, he had a different drummer. Fired the whole band before they shot the videos. Oh, so you're watching Tommy Aldridge hitting drums, and you're hearing the same drum hits that you're seeing with his hands, but he's miming to a different drummer. You're hearing John Sykes do a guitar solo, but you're watching Adrian Vandenberg move his hands like he's doing the solo. So people don't really care that much if what you're hearing and what you're seeing are the same thing. My wife went to see all the bands in the 80s. She lived in LA. She saw everybody from Motley Crue to Guns N' Roses, like when they were club bands and stuff, you know, and then all the huge arena bands. And I asked her, I said, all the bands you saw, the Van Halen, Scorpions, AC/DC, everybody. I go, who was the best? Who was the one that sticks out? She goes, oh, easily White Snake. I said, why? What did were they doing backflips? Did they have a great crazy laser show? She said, no, it sounded exactly like the record. To her, what made it good was that it sounded just like the album. And I said, you realize that the guys that you saw playing those songs are not the guys that you're hearing on the record? And she just looked at me and shrugged. She goes, I don't care. And it was just this weird realization moment of like, wow, most people don't really care as long as they're hearing the voice. They want to hear the voice that they know from the songs.
100%.
And Phil Anselmo wrote every lyric and vocal melody that he sang in Pantera after the power metal record, because that was halfway written when he joined the band. But from Cowboys Forward, he wrote every lyric and every vocal melody. And until 2 years ago, when the Katy Perry case came up where she got sued by a Christian rapper because she stole a piece of one of his songs or whatever, until that case came up, you could only copyright lyrics and melody. Therefore, I would say Phil has more right to those songs than any of the other members of Pantera, because he wrote all the words and all the vocal melodies. So he should absolutely be able to perform those songs live and make money from them. And as long as he has Rex with him, that's half of the band. That is 50% of the band. When I was talking about Whitesnake, what you saw in the videos was 20% of the band, because it was only one guy of a 5-guy band. So if you do the math,
yep.
It's half of the band is performing as Pantera. And it doesn't matter if they call it, if it says Pantera on the flyer or has little letters that says a celebration of, and then Pantera big. People, when they get their tickets to the show, they're going to say, I got Pantera tickets. I'm going to go see Pantera. People are going to call it Pantera anyway. So it doesn't matter. All the gatekeeping trolls online that feel like that they have the right to name the band or say what they're allowed to name the band. You know, those guys are rich. They have a team of people, managers, and all this stuff. You know, like lawyers. They figured out in advance that they could be called Pantera, or they wouldn't be. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Obviously, the dad, you know, the brother's dad, Jerry Abbott, he's either making a chunk of money from these performances or they bought the rights from him. So they're doing it legally. So they're not doing anything illegal. And morally, I think that it's okay. I think that since Phil did write the lyrics and the melodies and Rex is in the band, those are two guys from a project that was a four-man project that everybody knows that material. I mean, yeah, there was singers before Phil, but that doesn't really count. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, two of the guys from the most popular era, one being The Voice that you know, that wrote all the lyrics and vocal melodies, I absolutely think that it's okay that they are called Pantera and they are touring. And I've seen the videos with Zakk Wylde and with Charlie Benante, and they are playing the songs exactly like the records. They are doing an honor to that material. They're playing note for note, drum beat for drum beat, drum fill for drum fill, identically what was on the albums. They're not putting their own spin on it or whatever. They're playing the songs with respect, and they're doing it out of respect. And I think that they couldn't be doing a better job as that. So anybody that says, oh, they shouldn't call it Pantera, that's emotion getting involved. And like I said, I kind of have that feeling too. I think back to Metallica when Metallica cut their hair, and I felt like, oh, the fans should be able to be the boss of what they do. Well, we're not, though. The fans aren't the boss. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
No, so, I completely agree. And by the way, we're talking to Jim Harris here on the Metal Mixtape. Continue, Jim.
Yeah.
No, and I agree, dude. That like this is one of the conversations I had with Brittany Slays from Lisa Archers. You know, but when they unleashed Abyss, they knew that a bunch of after Apex, they knew that a bunch of people weren't gonna like the synthesizers or anything. But the thing is that everybody in the band wanted them. And the thing is, she said that at the end of the day, she doesn't give a crap because it's them that have to get on stage and play it, and they have to enjoy what they play. So they played what they want to play, and they knew a bunch of people were going to be like, synthesizers, I wanted the more melodic thrash out and all that, and no, I'm all about that, man.
Yeah, and I struggle. I struggle myself as an artist and I struggled with this a lot with Silent Storm. I made a lot of decisions based on what I felt like the fans would want. And I went against my gut a lot of times, and I turned down ideas that maybe pushed us outside of our box of, you know, this band is this thing. Now, I understand when somebody like, I don't know, Judas Priest does Turbo, or when Celtic Frost did Cold Lake, when you completely change your style and it sounds like a completely different band, the fans are going to go, what the hell? I thought I was getting a Judas Priest record. This sounds like the Police. What's going on with all these keyboards or whatever? But, you know, I think that artists should be sort of allowed to experiment, you know, however they feel, whatever feels right to them, what feels normal to them. I'm writing lyrics for the new Emissary material right now, and they don't sound a lot like the lyrics that I wrote on the old material, because a lot of that old material I wrote 30 years ago, and I'm a different person now, and I've got a different outlook on life, and you know what I mean? So I'm not going to try to impersonate myself from 30 years ago. I'm going to write the way that I write, and I think that there's enough with each guy in this band, you know, with since you know, Tim's an original member, and Pete was on all of the basically the big shows, you know, when he joined up. So that was Emissary, was Pete, Tim, and myself, and those members are in this version of the band, and we just have added Tony and Charlie to to the mix. And as you know, Charlie wrote a song that doesn't sound exactly like what you would expect from Emissary, but I sang on it, and I showed it to the band, and everyone's saying, like, yeah, it's a good start. It does kind of feel a little bit like slightly different than something that would have been on the first record, but I like to use the Metallica example and say Metallica, when they came out, Kill 'Em All was the Metallica sound, just that album.
Yeah.
Then they came out with Ride the Lightning, and there are songs on there like, I don't know, For Whom the Bell Tolls doesn't sound like anything on Kill 'Em All, but it still sounds like Metallica. You know, they blossomed. And I think bands are allowed to do that. Now, as far as Pantera recording material, like a new album under the name Pantera, with Zakk Wylde on guitar and Charlie on drums, I don't know about that, because I don't know if they have the chemistry that the old Pantera had. Because really, the Pantera that everybody thinks about, they don't think about the glam era.
Yeah.
They think about what I call a tough guy era. You know, where it got a little bit, angrier and more aggressive, and that was Phil's influence, coming in and bringing bands like Exhorder to them and saying, here's a band from New Orleans that's doing this thing that we could start doing some stuff like this. Before Phil joined the band, those other three guys, they were not making magic. They were making okay metal records. Phil coming into the band, and again, I'm not a fanboy of Phil Anselmo, I'm not a fanboy of Pantera. It's just a fact. When he came into the band, he did something. He was the puzzle piece they needed to turn it into the band that they became. So, I just don't know if they tried to record new material with Zakk Wylde writing the music, if it would, and Charlie writing the drum parts, if it would even vibe the same way as the old material. I don't know about that.
You know what, though? I think, you want to know my weird opinion on this?
I do.
I think, honestly, I think Pantera coming back together, bringing Charlie and Zakk, I think this is one of the most important things to happen in metal in all of 2022. Honestly, I feel like it was so needed. Honestly, I feel like it saved it a little bit. And I'm not saying that metal was in trouble, but the thing is that, like, as a promoter, I pay attention to all these banners. I pay attention to all the headliners, who's co-headlining. I pay attention to every band. When there's like 20 stages on Hellfest, I pay attention to which bands are getting promoted on which albums, which is this and that, dude. And Pantera, what they brought out again was like that old school 90s, 80s raw metal and like the crowds, right? And I always explain to people, countries in South America, they always crush and all that, but like even me, like not being like a crazy Pantera fan myself, like I grew up listening to a lot of Pantera, but it wasn't like my first thing. I was like more of like a Bruce fan. But the thing is like I can't help but love the rhythmic energy and like Jimbo said about like what Phil's voice brings to that band as far as the intensity, that I feel like this was so important. And I feel like even quoting off what Jimbo said is that Charlie and Zakk, they're playing Phil for Phil, note for note, and they're not overdoing it. Like I watched the performance, it isn't like Zakk Wylde is just extra pitch harmonic and everything. And he's trying to do exactly what Diane's trying to do, and I can tell it's difficult, but I honor Zakk for like when you see him play Diane's parts, you can tell Zack's paying attention.
Oh yeah.
Like Zakk Zakk isn't doing the whole he's like actually like paying it. He's like I gotta do all this stuff, dude. But I don't know, Jim. I just felt like they were just really important for last year because I like seeing them up on that banner. And it's like you said, it doesn't even matter if the words are a little bit like a celebration too. People just want to see Pantera.
Yeah, and as long as there's a demand for it, and there is a demand for it, obviously there's tons of people going to see them. And the footage that I've seen, I don't know their music note for note, but I'm telling you, just as enough of a little bit of a fan that I am of, like, say, Cowboys era, you could play me like a YouTube video of somebody filming them like 2 weeks ago, and I was closing my eyes, and then play footage of them from like 97. I wouldn't know the difference. I wouldn't be able to tell. I wouldn't say like, oh yeah, they sound totally different. I think Charlie's even playing Vinny's drums. They definitely had him tuned the drums to sound just like the records. So they're doing it in an honorable way, and I think they're doing it for honorable reasons. They waited 20 years. That's enough. That's enough mourning the loss of Dime. And now that Vinny's back, it's not like they chose Zach and Charlie over the Abbott brothers, because the Abbott brothers are not going to be playing any metal anytime soon without a heater and some serious smelling salts. Sorry to make light of it, but you understand what I'm saying.
I feel like your entire argument about for the reasons why the Pantera tour works could totally you replace Pantera with Kiss, and you can totally argue against those Gatekeeper fans and just tell them if people want to hear a sound, that's what you're getting when you go see that. You're not getting what in your head and when your heart what you think you're going to. I don't know. It's like two very similar arguments in a sense. People are going to Pantera because they want to hear that classic sound. They want to go to a Kiss show. They don't care who's behind the makeup. They want to hear that classic sound.
Yeah, Judas Priest isn't.
Yep,
I think Priest and Halford's not even the original vocalist.
No, definitely not.
And he's the. So basically there's only one original member in that band. Merciful Fate, it's just King Diamond. But people are still buying the tickets and packing the arenas because they want to hear him sing those songs. And people don't really care that it's a bunch of different dudes. They want to hear the voice that they know, and they want to hear the songs that they know. And from what I can tell, Phil still sings that material the same way he did before. And I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. I'm not privy to the legal aspect or what hoops they had to jump through. But they wouldn't be touring right now under the name Pantera unless they were legally allowed to. Somebody would be stopping them if the Abbott family didn't want it to happen or whatever.
That makes total sense. Shane, any final comment before we move on to Pantera?
So all I can really say is that I have seen videos of this kind of new lineup of Pantera, and Phil's voice, like you were just saying there, Jim, his voice sounds like kind of just like it did 20 years ago. He's singing some songs just outstanding, I think. And Zach and Charlie, they're knocking it out of the park, in my opinion.
I love how you didn't even bring up Rex. Rex is in the band too, by the way. He plays bass. He's kind of famous too.
Kind of.
Yeah, and the only argument against it would be they're not allowed. They shouldn't play those songs because two of the guys that played on that material are no longer with us, and that just seems like BS. That again, the argument can be made a million times over for half of my CD collection. That there's plenty of bands that I still love that I know from 20, 30 years ago, whatever, Anthrax. So many bands that have two members gone. What about Megadeth? Megadeth is none of the same guys. It's just the front man, and then a bunch of new guys, but it's still Megadeth.
No, Guar don't even have their front man anymore, and he was,
Rest in peace.
Guar, it's like they moved on without their front man / one of their most signature members, if you will.
Yeah,
they're still selling tickets, they're still making albums, they're still making money. So it's if people want.
Yeah, and they did it really respectfully. They did it respectfully by bringing the original Beefcake back as a new character.
Lothar.
Oh, no wonder I recognize him.
Lothar is the original Beefcake.
So Mike Bishop, I actually had breakfast with him. Was it over? I think it was when I was 14.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was almost like all the original, I know Ballsack is one of the original members. Ballsack, and I think because I think they have two original members left. It's Ballsack and then one of the other guitar players. But yeah, Ballsack's the drummer, right? No, it's not Ballsack.
Ballsack, the Dolls of Death.
Oh, the Dolls of Death, yeah.
You think he's Matt Gesher?
Yeah, just Matt Gesher.
But
by the way, that's kind of good.
It's refreshing to hear, because I don't know about it, I'm not trying to growl or anything, but I've always respected your opinion, Jim, and hearing I guess the outlet, it's a refreshing outlook, you know, the whole thing. I always say, if people want to hear the stuff, you know, no matter who it is, they're going to pay for it. They're going to go do it, you know.
Sure, and here's one last thing I want to say about that.
Okay.
If you think about Pantera as a company, just for a second, take music off of the table, okay? Think of it as a brand, okay? Just like try to think of it as a brand for a second. So, say you really like Taco Bell, okay? But then, like the two founders that were a couple brothers that started Taco Bell, you get news that they died. Should Taco Bell still be allowed to exist with other people running the company? Of course they should. You know, you don't just like close the doors on the company. I mean, if whoever started Nike or something, you know what I mean? Like it's like that. I like those shoes. Like, oh, the founders were a couple of brothers and they both passed away. Oh, we should just close the doors on the company and not make any more Nike shoes for people. Screw that.
No, I dig it, man.
So once your band reaches brand status, it's like, you know, it's bigger than you. You know, at that point, it's you know.
Hey Jim, so in 2022, there's a lot of bands that came out, a lot of great records. Is there an artist or a record that really stuck out to you that in 2022 that maybe surprised the hell out of you, or just that you thought that was really important for that year?
Yes, and I'm going to start by saying, I'm going to break my own rule here. This is something that I would kind of get on the guys in Sound Strong about like not talking non-metal stuff on a metal interview.
Dude,
but
the metal mixtape. We played Aretha Franklin on here sometimes. We
played Keith Born East LA.
Yeah, we played Milli Vanilli on here. Like, dude, speak your
right
mind,
on,
brother.
So I go through little phases, you know, and sometimes I'm listening to more thrash, sometimes I'm listening to more. I'll listen to oldies. Sometimes I get in phases where I'm listening to country and pop punk and all kinds of different stuff, you know. And lately I've just been on this female vocal kick, and it's been happening for a long time. And as I went through thinking about 2022, I don't really like the whole list. Like one thing you'll notice is I rarely talk about. People will go, "Ooh, who's your favorite band?" It's like it changes depending on what I'm listening to.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I've had plenty of favorite bands over the years that, you know, depending on whenever you catch me, what season it is, I might be listening to more Metal Church or more Metallica or YNC or Lizzie Borden or whatever. YNC, another band where only the singer's left and the three members are dead, but they still keep going. So I've been on this female vocal kick, and I opened a Pandora account, and I'm actually paying $12.99 a month to have a Pandora account. And because I've been listening to a lot of female vocalists, I drop a few artists in there that I like, and it plays a few songs that I like, and then it will pick me something that, you know, suggests something. It throws something in the mix that I didn't choose, but Pandora goes, oh, here's another thing that has the elements that you like. You know, it's just an algorithm or whatever. And I have discovered so many female vocalists, and I'm talking everything from cinematic music to chamber pop to like acoustic neo-folk and dance music and all this kind of stuff. Like just so many, and I don't know what it is. I'm just on a, like I said, a female vocal kick, and I like female vocalists all the way back from Leslie Gore and the Shangri-Las up through, like, I'm talking stuff that metal guys would be like, that's not cool. You're not allowed to like Helen Reddy. Like, no, really, like, and Casey Chambers and all this kind of stuff. So a few of the artists that I've been checking out lately, there's a chick called Aurora. Have you heard of Aurora?
Sounds familiar.
Oh my God, she's so good. She's this little, she's like a wood nymph. She's like she's from Norway, and she's this young girl that like writes her own songs and has no musical education. She just had a little keyboard when she was a kid and just started making up melodies, and she mixes up her minors and majors and comes up with these really interesting vocal melodies and writes her own lyrics and everything. And the first time she ever sang like in public was her senior year of high school, and one of the kids like filmed her and they put her on the internet, and it pissed her off because she was like, no, my music is for me, it's not for the world. And of course she got flooded with all these record label offers and stuff, and she said she was turning them down. They're like, do you want to be an artist? We could can make you a huge artist. You've got all the makings of, you know, to be the next big thing. And she said no. And then her mom told her, you should really share your music with the world because there might be people out there that desperately need it. And that made her change her mind. And she said, okay. And she signed a record contract, and she's put out 3 or 4 records now. She's been out for about 7 years now. And, dude, she's so amazing. She is the voice of the North Wind in Frozen 2, you know, the Disney movie.
Yeah.
And she just look up Aurora, and then, like, you can look up reaction videos to people listening to her and just startled at how amazing her voice is.
I'm just going to react to Aurora. I'll just do that.
Do it.
I'm going to react to it.
Yeah, cool. And, yeah, pretty much any song. I mean, I would say probably start with Runaway. Runaway is the first one I think that's the one that gets you in, that makes you go, okay, now I've totally got to just check out everything from this gal.
We got it. We might have to play something nice. Maybe
dude, she's so good. So good. Discovered a chick named Phoebe Bridgers. And then through Phoebe Bridgers, she used to be in a band called Sloppy Jane, which I think is a pretty clever name, like the female version of Sloppy Joe.
Yeah.
And I started digging into Sloppy Jane, and then I could talk for probably 2 hours about Sloppy Jane. I'm just enamored with the main gal that comes up with all of the ideas, just super smart business decisions as far as how she kind of guides the narrative of what you pay attention to in her art. And I like the way she talks in interviews, and she never really repeats herself. Every interview you read is a completely different interview. It's not like, you know, somebody like, I don't know, Metal Church puts out a new record, and they get 100 calls in one day. And then once all the interviews get published, they're virtually the same interview. Because they ask them, oh, where did you record the album? And what's it like? What's the plan for next year?
Yeah, no, it's dumb. Believe me, I try not to take interviews too seriously. Just because, like, I feel like you have, like, the best connections with people, and, like, you treat them, like, I mean, you treat them with respect and everything. But, dude, I mean, I listen to a lot of these interviews, and I get so sick of them. And they are, like, the same thing, dude. Like, I remember when I interviewed Johnny McBee, he told me that he cried after my interview, because he said I was his last interview out of 10, right? And he said his label provided 8 interviews, and then his other publicist branched off and provided the last 4. And he told me he told me that at the end, I was his 12th interview at the end of the day. And he told me that he cried to his wife because I was the only person that asked about another song on that album that wasn't a single. And I actually talked about the album. I was like literally the other 11 people. He's like they acted like they never heard it. They acted like it was a job. Like they got sent a record and was like, oh, here, figure it out. You know, and that's why I don't do album reviews. Because the thing is like they're completely biased, right? It's subjective. Because here's the thing: not all reviews are accurate or even close. For the reason that if you have a thrash record and you have 10 people reviewing it, not everybody's a thrash guy. If you're a heavy metal head, some guy could be a black metal guy, some guy could be a guy a death metal head, and you would get all these outrageous comments from people that don't even listen remotely close to that genre.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So I always tell people, when people try to tell me to like review their albums and all that, and I'm just like, dude, I'm not a black metal head guy. Like I couldn't tell you if that was really great or not. I couldn't tell you. I just wouldn't know. And I don't want to give you an opinion that I thought it was alright. Because to me, as somebody who doesn't listen to a whole lot of black metal, I listen to some. That's my only opinion. But if you can tell me about something melodic, I can be like, oh my gosh.
Right. Yeah. So this band Sloppy Jane, I'm actually more interested in the artist than the actual art. Like I don't really care much for the songs.
Yeah.
So it's really weird that I just think that the main gal, her name's Haley Dahl, and she's got a very interesting backstory. Her parents are in the business, and she got her start in show business basically doing voiceover work for cartoons, and then she basically created her own brand and made all these really smart business decisions. She met with a guy named Kim Fowley, who basically discovered the Runaways.
Yeah.
And he fed her all these ideas like make sure you always do this, make sure you never do this, and she is just so smart about like a savvy business person and a really smart artist, and she made this crazy decision when during COVID and there was no venues to play. She said, well, I still want to travel somewhere and I want to record the album in a place where nobody's ever recorded an album. She says there's still caves. You know, caves like where you can go and visit caves, and there's like you can go into caves. They're actual, not man-made caves, but they're these giant holes in the earth.
Yeah.
And she made the decision to record their newest album in a cave so they could get natural reverb.
Yeah.
In crazy, like freezing temperatures with 90% humidity that was messing up all of the tuning of the instruments and just stuff that's like she did things the hard way for the sake of art. Like she could have easily just recorded, at home and just added fake reverb on, but they're like, no, it's worth it to go and do things the hard way to be able to say, I did this thing that, I certainly have never heard of anybody else ever recording their album in a cave.
That's amazing, man.
So that's the things like that. So I get into artists. I'll hear a song and then I go and I listen to their interviews and I do all this research and find out why they made certain business decisions and why they made certain creative decisions. And I'm just fascinated by all of that stuff.
I love it.
So as far as heavy records go, though, and this was totally by accident. As I was looking through 2022, looking at all the records that came out, I gotta admit, man, there's a ton out there that I haven't heard. I have not heard the new Megadeth. And I saw that Kirk Hammett did a solo record. And I didn't even know until today.
Whoa.
Like, Kirk Hammett has a solo album out. In 2022. So I'm like, man, there's probably a ton of great stuff out there that I just haven't heard. But the stuff that I've been listening to, because I've been on a female vocal kick, in my top picks would be Splintered Throne, The Greater Good of Man, which is interesting because Lisa Mann, the singer, did my favorite record of 2020 with White Chrome.
Mm-hmm. Great album.
Sanhedrin, we played with them in Chicago. They have an album called Lights On, absolutely fantastic. A band called Hoax. It's a two-person band, just a drummer and guitarist that sings, both female members, and they go way back, like, been around for like 10 years, but they were in all these different kinds of bands together, like weird, like a pop punk band, and then a band that sounded like the Donnas, and then like a really bizarre, like Sonic Youth sounding band, and they had all these different bands together, and members just kept dropping off, and the two main members, the drummer, is married to the singer from, I want to say Idle Hands, but that's not what they're called now, Unto Others.
Yeah, they're dope too.
Yeah, so Gabe's wife, from Unto Others, his wife is the drummer of Hoaxed. And they had an EP last year, and they have a new album out that just came out about a month and a half ago on Relapse called Two Shadows. Fantastic. It's not just exclusively metal. There's like almost like surf riffs in there, and there's goth sounding stuff, and there's crazy synth things, and it's just a really interesting listen. But the one thing that is on the top of my list, and this is super bizarre because I don't like the band name and I don't like their album cover. They're called Offended. A weird name. There's some weird little band from the UK. They're like high school kids. Their album is called, I'm going to screw this up. It's something with the word nowhere in it. This is my favorite record of the year. I don't even know the name of it. But, dude, it's got really, like, you can tell that they love heavy metal, but that they kind of don't really know how to make heavy metal, if that makes any sense. There's this rawness to it that you can tell that they make bizarre choices of when to go to the guitar solo and how long to stay on a certain riff. And, sometimes you're expecting it to elevate and it slows down, and sometimes you're expecting it to slow down and it elevates, and just all these crazy choices. When the album's over, you go, man, I gotta hear that again. I've just been listening to that album on repeat, and they made some very bizarre choices. They have AI art for the album cover, which I don't think is a a super smart choice, and I mentioned something to the band about that, saying that I'd like to see some merch in the band, but maybe not necessarily that album cover. And they wrote LOL. Yeah, there's been a lot of talk about that. I guess there's a lot of people that aren't digging the album cover. It's called Welcome to Nowhere. Offended, Welcome to Nowhere. It's been out for about 4 weeks. It's a 3-piece band. I swear, the high school kids, a female vocalist, her boyfriend's the guitar player and a drummer, and the guitar player also plays bass on the record, but they're a 3-piece band with no bassist. And I think that the record is so good that I would not be surprised if one of the bigger labels hits them up and offers them a ton of money to maybe repackage that album, put it out, stick them on tour. I think that big things are going to be happening for Offended. They're from England. They're a British band.
That's awesome, dude. No, we're actually looking at the album cover and stuff right now as you're talking about it. So.
Yeah, it's like kind of rainbowy looking. And
yeah.
Are we looking? Welcome to Nowhere, right?
Yeah, Welcome to Nowhere.
They also got another one there called Mistakes. Looks like it's kind of along the same vibe of the AI art type thing.
That's one of the singles. They also released singles from the album.
Okay.
And they went probably into the same AI program and probably. You know how you do that with AI art. You say you want it in this, you want it in this style and have these elements, and then it makes it for you. And all of their artwork kind of looks like that, and they have art for many of the songs. And it was just, I was like, I gotta look into these guys. They don't have any professional photographs. The only photographs of them are like rehearsing in a bedroom. Like they're just so underground. And they made this fantastic record that there's no way they could have made this record unless they were sort of young and inexperienced, if that makes any sense.
No.
There's this authenticity to it that I truly love, and that's my favorite thing of the year. It just came out 4 weeks ago.
I love it, dude. I love it. Let's end on the note. What's Emissary doing in 2023, man? Anything you can give us, or what's your headspace and what's your attitude going into this year for your band?
Dude, it's really interesting. I've been on this kind of this new kick where I've been watching like a lot of self-help videos and trying to, I don't know. I've been.
We all do that.
I've been working on personal growth, not only as an artist but just as a person, and work on my relationships. I started finding myself bothered by certain things that other people were doing, and then started asking myself, like, why does that bug me so much? Is that something that I have a problem with, or is it that they're doing something? And then started realizing a lot of things that other people do that bug me are things that I do. That kind of thing. Just examining myself, and I started journaling, and it's really helped. It's really opened up my mind to new lyrical ideas, and so there's going to be a whole bunch of new directions on the next Emissary material you're going to hear, but unfortunately I can't give you much because, as you guys know, I'm not allowed to make announcements before contracts are signed and things like that. But let's just say we got a lot of irons in the fire, and there's a lot cooking behind the scenes, and some exciting stuff that once we do finally get to announce it, a lot of people are going to be hopefully excited for the things we got coming.
I am excited.
Eyebrows are dancing back here. I'm ready.
Southern Oregon, we have been talking to Jim Harris of Emissary and Sound and Storm. Jimbo, thank you so much for making time for us. Everybody, give a round of applause. Good conversation here.
Always a pleasure.
And this 100% because we're on top of our game this year. This interview will be up on YouTube this weekend, so check out our channel. Jimbo Harris, any final words before I let you go?
Just thanks for the interview. Thanks for making the time, and love what you guys are doing, and love what you're doing with the show, and what you've done with the show, and that you continue to do with the show. I absolutely admire everything you're doing. Some people may not know I started the show just as this tiny little thing, and before it even grew into anything, when it was just barely a seed, I handed it off to Omar, and it has blossomed into this beautiful thing worldwide, and I couldn't be any more proud.
I love
you guys are awesome.
No, it's the dream team, brother. I appreciate you so much. Southern Oregon, Jimbo Harris, brother. I'm going to talk to you soon. Check out Emissary, please, because they're amazing. I'll talk to you later, my friends.